Economic panic time. I know that's a pretty alarming title, pretty dramatic, but before you think it's clickbait, let me just have a minute to make my case. And I think that you're going to agree with a lot of what I say. And I think that you also know a lot of what I'm going to talk about to already be true. I'm also going to talk about the carrying costs on the federal debt. So think about your answer. We'll get to it in a minute. But what is the carrying costs on the federal debt? What do you think the credit card payment is every month, every year? How much do you think it is? Now, with everything that we're about to talk about, I would ask you, what better time to panic? If you're going to panic, why not do it now? And I'll tell you why. Just like copper and oil are reflections of the economy, the more active the economy is, the more the prices are for those commodities. Homelessness is an indicator of economic troubles, economic weakness. And we're seeing more homelessness now by leagues than we ever have in a while. And the biggest growing population of the homeless people are people who are homeless because of the economy. Not because of the other reasons that people can become homeless for. It's because of the economy. That portion is growing rapidly.
Please subscribe to get our next actionable video.
Another reason to panic is with the uncertainty of the election and the polarization. You're either this party or that party, and the chasm or the difference between the two is so extreme, there's never been anything like it. We've talked about the stock market's overvaluation from the Q ratio, the Buffett indicator, the historical price earnings levels that represent value versus overvaluation. But also, it's about the speed of the climb. Look at this chart of the NASDAQ. The faster something rises, the faster it falls. You want to have something increasing in a measured and manageable way, slowly, gradually. Then you know that the gains will be lasting. So here's the NASDAQ, and you see the three trends over the last year. Each one was shorter than the one before it. Each one was steeper than the one before it. This all feels like it's building up to something pretty big. It's getting steeper and shorter, and I think it's about to come to the end of the road. That's just my opinion. I'm wrong plenty of the time, but I got to believe this way, and I got to act on this belief. Now, if you look at a 3-month chart, you can see how it goes from a healthy, more conventional kind of growth to a reactive, impulsive, dramatic kind of trading chart. So a chart can only tell you so much, but the one thing we know from this chart is that this stock market is definitely a redhead. Thefts also increase before a major economic or stock market drawdown. You see spikes in crime and thefts and dishonest reporting. Some of it's financial crime, like lying on a mortgage application, but a lot of it's actual more conventional crime. Car thefts in the United States steadily increased during the past 5 years, according to new data from the FBI. From 2019 to 2023, the nationwide rate of motor vehicle theft incidents rose from 199 per 100,000 people to 283. That's over a 40% increase. But speaking of increases, let's take a look at the monetary creation chart that I've showed you so many times. And this chart is a reflection or an illustration of the problems with the economy. Without this monetary creation, this economy is a train wreck. But they luckily took on more debt, they made more money, they created it out of thin air. Hey everybody, now we've got a $1 trillion coin made out of platinum. But with all that monetary creation, you also have a decrease in the value of each of those dollars. There's so many more American dollars. So if you look at something like gold, which is a reflection of the currency, gold has always been money. It's never changed in value. It's just sat there. And then it'll seem like it increases the prices because it takes more American dollars or Japanese yen or euros to buy the same thing because the currencies are becoming less and less valuable. So while gold's at a record, it broke through $2,500 markedly the other day. It went up over $50 an ounce yesterday. So what do you think that says about the currency itself? And we're just getting started. They're about to make a whole bunch of new money. You'll see it's going to be disgusting. Here's a chart of auto loan delinquencies, which is also rising just like bankruptcies. This is all leading up to a massive banking crisis, which is going to come up pretty soon. There's a lot of write-downs that are going to show up on the coming quarterly reports that the banks are going to be releasing soon. They've got a lot of properties, office buildings, that the owner is paying mortgage for all the millions of dollars they borrowed from the bank to have that office building and run it. And now it's half empty and they don't have the money to give to the bank. And now the banks are going to start recognizing that they're in a lot of trouble. They're going to start taking some losses on a few of the loans that are out there that are less likely to be paid. And we've got record debts across all stratas of ways that debts can be held. We'll get into that in a bit. But right now, there's 63% of working families unable to pay for a $500 emergency. And there's 62% of families feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck. And since God has a sense of humor, this all leads into the beginning of what's going to be interest rates coming down and the recognition of the recession that we're either in right now or we're about to be. So I'll ask you again before we get into the meat of the video. If you're not going to panic yet, I've got to ask you what you could possibly be waiting for. What do you need to see to get you motivated to take an action to protect yourself? A lot of people, they follow my videos. Some of them are even subscribed to both of my newsletters. And they agree with what I'm saying. It's logical to them. And they still haven't done anything about it. They haven't taken action. I know there's a few of you out there. The time is now. I know it sounds like a cliche, but if you don't protect yourself and your situation right now, you may be looking in a completely different world, a very difficult world, a matter of months from now. Like, literally, this is your last warning. The title is also dramatic to try and spur you into action. A lot of people need to be given a kick in the butt right now, I think. Because everything I'm talking about is for real. Like, this is literally going to happen. It's all playing out in front of our eyes. And everyone else is talking about it now because they're seeing it equally, like the debt bomb. You know, because you've been here, that I've been talking about this stuff from decades ago. I'm glad everyone else is catching up and recognizing it now, but I think there's a little bit of clout to be out of the person who saw it coming from so far ahead of time and has been talking about it the entire way. So now let's get to the meat. Control, debts, banks, and confidence. We'll go quickly through the meat here. Banks are about to have a banking crisis. I told you there's a lot of vacant office buildings. The businesses or the entities that own the buildings aren't bringing enough money from the renters to be able to float or pay for the mortgages they have. The banks are the ones who are going to take the hits when the debtors have to start defaulting or being delinquent in their payments. But no one's coming into the office anymore. But that also affects the peripheral businesses all around too. Restaurants, bars, convenience stores. With the city half full, so to speak, the lineups are shorter, the traffic is less, but the banks are in a lot of financial hardships, and they're going to be releasing their financials soon, and they're going to have to start having these bigger write-offs, and it's going to become more widely known, and we're going to enter this big banking crisis. You're being controlled. They're telling you what they want you to believe, or they're limiting your choices. They're jawboning you. You always hear them saying that the economy is so strong, and if they say it again and again and again, then they point only to unemployment, which is rising now, and the stock market, which is falling lately, as proof that we have such a strong economy. But as I've told you many times in these videos, I look at a few other things. Meanwhile, they control you by limiting your choices. You can vote Republican or Democrat. Anything else is a wasted vote. So they tell you what to believe. They limit your choices. Meanwhile, they distract you. Everyone's looking at Johnny Depp and the election. They gaslight you by saying, no, what you think you're seeing is not the real thing. You're looking at it wrong. That's not a recession. They downplay things. Oh, it's not that bad. Don't worry about it. It's not as bad as it is in Japan. All of this comes together in a way to make sure that they're keeping you exactly where they need. Well, you haven't seen anything yet because it's all leading up to the complete loss of your financial autonomy for the rest of your life, the central bank digital currency. Anything you can do to fight against this, please do that. It's going to be terrible. And I don't mean that they're going to implement it and all of a sudden that politicians are going to run amok and use it for vile, evil purposes. I'm saying 2 or 3 politicians from now they will. For example, they'll start it out and everyone will cheer it. They'll say, okay, you know what we can do? Why not do this? People will vote for me. If you have a drunk driving incident on your record, you can't buy alcohol. Or you pay 20% more, whatever. They can do all of that with a couple of buttons. And the first time they do that, everyone will say, and that would be a great idea, by the way, everyone will say, wow, that's really good. It actually helps save lives. But it's the decisions after that, and some of the decisions that you're not even going to know about, and sort of slide them under the radar. They can control you in any way, any which way. It's going to be terrible. You don't understand. If there's someone who wants to use it for evil, they will use it easily for the most evil. You might have to pay more for certain items than your neighbor does based on your social credit score or whatever they decide to implement now that they've got us by. They don't have it yet. If we could do anything to stop the central bank digital currency, that will be the best thing for your financial life and autonomy that you could possibly do. It's a terrible idea. It can be easily turned against the people that it is controlling and monitoring and tracking. And debts, you know that they're all overinflated in every way that can be overinflated. Personal, your neighbor, your coworkers, the company you work at, the municipality you live in, the state you live in, the entire federal government. All of this debt's been taken on with the interest rates too low. But I promised you to talk about the carrying costs on the federal debt. Did you have time to think of your answer? How much money do you think the federal government just spends to pay down the interest costs on the federal debt? And that, by the way, is one of the reasons that the Federal Reserve is going to start lowering interest rates. It's not just all the other reasons that they talk about. It's also because the United States government cannot afford to pay their debts at these interest rates. As of July 2024, it costs $956 billion to maintain the debt, which is 17% of the total federal spending in fiscal year 2024. Imagine if 17% of your personal income went to pay the interest on your credit card. After control and banks and debts, the last one is confidence. The US dollar is just an idea that we all agree upon. It's not backed up by any value. You can't say, well, I could take this in and turn it in for some gold. It's just an idea that we agree upon. And I heard that first from Michael Gerber, my business coach, decades ago, and I didn't understand it at first, but then I thought about it more and more for years, and I get it. Confidence is the most important part of any fiat currency. But there's confidence of Americans, and you know if someone gives you a $20 bill that you can give it to someone else for a certain value, you get it, you're all on the same page. But where does confidence also get lost in the American dollar? Foreign confidence, overseas, China, Japan. That's why they're selling all the US currencies and treasuries that they already have and not buying anymore and selling the ones that they do have. The world's lost complete confidence. So with Japan and China both, a lot of that had to do with their own domestic issues. That's why they're not buying more American debts, more American treasuries, but it still has the same outcome. This is all leading up to a massive US dollar crisis. And what happens in the US dollar crisis, which might get set off by the banking crisis, what happens is that things like commodities spike in price. All of a sudden it takes way more dollars to buy things. Gold goes up even more. Silver goes up more. Oil goes up even more. But there's something that gets better, is the balance of trade. All of a sudden, it's more expensive to buy things from other countries. And when they buy things from us, they can buy them for a lower price because our dollar is worth less. So all of a sudden you have less money going out, more money coming in. Balance of trade starts to heal itself. But one thing about confidence, one of the most important aspects of confidence and what can derail it is when you have choice. For the first time ever, there's going to be a choice over the American dollar. I would rather own a gold-backed currency than the US dollar or any other fiat currency, unless I'm in America. The BRICS, plus all the other countries that are now joining the BRICS, are all going to be using whatever currency they decide that they want to use. That's why the BRICS currency is going to become the next reserve currency, replacing the falling US dollar. And if you want to learn more from me directly, you can get in touch with me by email directly and get a special newsletter, keep us ad-free and independent, just simply by becoming a Peter Leeds Insider. All the cool kids are doing it. You go to peterleeds.com/insiders. You can learn all about it and all the benefits you're going to get.
The Peter Leeds newsletter is one of the most popular financial publications of all time.